Hey, it's John Carlos, and I am here once again with my special guest,
Eddie!
Eddie. There we go. And
For everybody.
we have learned that when we decide to sit and talk about a franchise, we will fucking go on and on and on and on. What if?
Even the ones we don't think we have much to say about, turns out we have quite a bit.
Like Final Destination, we had 4 hours worth. Who knew? But that's the thing.
Who knew?
You, me, and I'm sure plenty of other people out there who like to sit around and just fucking yap about movies. You start talking about a movie, after outside the theater or hanging out by your car and you're hanging in your living room, and holy shit, it's been 3 hours and we've been talking about whatever. So that's how we are. But what if we just decided to talk about one movie, just one? So that's what we did. Obviously, if you're watching this and you click the fucking title, we're going to talk about Trick or Treat. But we love horror movies. We love Halloween time. And at least where other things, it's very easy to be critical about this or that. I mean, to me, Trick or Treat is just fucking, it's love. Like it is a hug of a movie. It is mac and cheese and fucking chocolate. And like, it just gives me all the joy.
Yeah, hot cocoa and like, a box of tissues on the sofa, like if you're not feeling well, but you're feeling well enough that, you can enjoy being sick. It's like that.
I'm here.
The upside of the flu. Yes.
Right.
Sorry.
No, I'm just, I came here to get down on my knees and just suck this movie's balls. So.
Michael Dougherty's anyway, yeah, probably.
Yeah.
But no, I feel the same way. Like,
would you say that this movie might be the best thing that has Bryan Singer's name attached to it?
Yeah. I mean, wasn't he integral in like the pilot anyway, or he produced House, right?
Yeah, I
like House.
I think he directed the pilot of House too.
I think so too, and I like that. So, but this, I like House a lot, but I don't love it the way I love Trick or Treat. Like Trick or Treat, I was just gonna say, yeah, when you mentioned this, when you brought it up, just between the two of us as a topic, I just melted. I was just like, oh, let's talk about that movie. Yeah. I could talk about that movie forever.
And I watch this movie every October.
Yeah.
But what a joy it is in the middle of the shit show that is existence right now to like just go to Halloween Town for like 90 minutes. It felt really good.
Yeah, even seasonally, topically, of course, like you and I we try to keep abreast of like current events and everything. And even though I don't know exactly when this is going to be posted or when you're going to be watching it, and if you look at the time it was posted, chances are things are probably still kind of fucked up in
I think things will
world.
probably be worse by the time this gets posted.
It seems to be pointing in that direction, which is why I'm really, really glad that, I got to escape all that and just kind of like move into this movie. Really does, anyway, invite you into a kind of, I don't want to use the wrong words because I almost said cushier, but this movie does have teeth. It does scare me. But it doesn't, it reminds me of what made me want to start watching horror movies in the first place when I was a kid, like the appeal. Like I feel like I'm kind of doing something I'm not supposed to be doing, but I can't stop watching it. And so there's that. That's always existed with this movie. But also just additionally, we're recording this in the summer. It's hot. And like even with, yeah, even with climate control within our respective homes, you don't want to overuse it. You don't want to go, be responsible for a power outage. So like, don't always use it. Like the windows are open right now. It's warm. I'm glistening. But what's really, really nice is I got to watch this last night when it was also warm. I was also glistening. But I just got transported. I just felt like I've never experienced like a Midwestern Halloween except through movies and TV. And this movie is another one of those that's probably one of the best ones at achieving that old time Americana Halloween moving into even more contemporary times. Like everything is kind of like the best of the holiday for me.
Yeah,
So
it's funny you mentioned the Midwestern sort of Halloween celebration, because to me, and I've seen this in a lot of other media, you see a lot of movies or a lot of TV shows, especially like a lot of kids movies and made for TV movies where the town and the main street or the plaza is all decked out for Halloween, and all the neighbors are going to town in their house, and you see it like in Hocus Pocus, and you see it in like Space Invaders, all these movies where the town goes nuts. And I've never really experienced that in real life. I've only seen that in the movies. Lord knows, I'm sure certain places must do it. I just can't relate to it. And I know for a fact, even though I've never been, I know Salem, really goes to town every year. But this idea of your main street having a party, and Lord, and you know, you and I are LA County, so I mean, there's plenty of Halloween festivities and isolated individual places that, you know, maybe get tricked out for events.
yeah.
But this I thought was interesting because it was one of the few times where I saw it in a movie that wasn't for kids. But when they established the town and the street bulbs, and I think there were orange lights, but everything's got like a warm glow to it, and there's stilt walkers, and there's people on the news covering the celebration of Halloween. And I think that's intentional, because even though this is like an R-rated film, it's still, I think it was intentional to have it be that kind of Halloween.
Yeah,
like that
absolutely.
kind of setup. And it's not wholly unbelievable to see a town do that. I just don't see it. But I think the fact that the movie decided to display Halloween in that way isn't a mistake.
Sure.
Absolutely isn't a mistake. As much as it's a celebration of
Yeah.
Halloween, it's also a celebration of the idea of what Halloween looks like on film and stuff, or at least what kids' movies presented. And now, if Michael Dougherty and I are somewhat the same age group, he is presenting it because he probably grew up on the same shit I did.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. The Halloween specials. And I think what's funny is I feel like you and I are kind of the generation, the last generation of kids that really got kind of great Halloween memories, because at my house, it's rare that we have trick-or-treaters. They're usually really, really little, or it's like a big group all at once. And they just don't have that kind of same. I feel like I can sometimes experience other kids' experiences like through their eyes. Like I can see a kid going through something and go kind of like, yeah, I know what that's like. And I haven't felt that way with trick-or-treaters in a long time. They're usually really, really friendly, really sweet, but they always seem a little like they don't know what to do. And as a kid, I knew what to do.
It's a very, I hear it every time. It's trick or treat. I've been doing the same thing for the last, God, maybe like 5 years. I go over to my friend's house, and the four of us watch horror movies and get up and hand out candy. And every year, we always have too much candy because not that many kids show up. They just don't.
I know. And I always overbuy, because you never want to be the house that gets caught, you know. I mean, I don't even think about the trick side of it anymore, because even though, you know, that's something that plays really, really deeply with this movie's lore, as, you know, contemporary lore, even, like it's a carry on of tradition, but, you know, there's still the trick side that these kids are experiencing, and it feels like a bygone era, because I don't feel like kids have any inclination to, at least in my neighborhood, for years and years, to even attempt any kind of a trick side of trick or treat. They just kind of say trick or treat because they've been told to, and they get candy. I mean, it's free candy, and I get adults too who are I mean, they're a little bit more enthusiastic than the kids are, but they're adults. I mean, how enthusiastic can you be? But I mean, again, that's what this movie, aside from even just the bygone era, it makes me it puts me in a condition to listen like I did when I was a kid, like whether I was watching a horror movie and just absorbing it like a sponge, like even if I was scared, I was still transfixed, or even being told a really scary story. The way everything seems to kind of stop moving and everybody kind of like leans in, but clenched. And you're waiting for the thing that you're going to kind of carry away from that story with you. And even like reading like, you know, books like More Scary Stories and stuff like that, this movie inspires that kind of thing in me. And I wonder if, because I know that it's a staple of the holiday for a lot of horror fans who maybe had this movie as a kid, or maybe like this is a movie they're just kind of discovering in their horror film watching. And I wonder what it must be like if it's like they're watching a fairy tale
Right, like
of
if
a
they
kind
were
of
10
magical Halloween.
Yeah.
Yeah, or at this point they could even have been born when it came out, and now they're like of age where maybe they're trick-or-treating, maybe they're not. But I wonder what kind of impact, if it all feels like, oh well, that's what happens in Halloween's in movies, but Halloween's never like that, you know, in real life. I wonder what it must be like for generations younger than us to experience this movie. It might become more and more like a fairy tale, and less like. And this is total downer. I'm sorry. But,
Well, thanks for joining me, Eddie. It's funny that you mentioned bygone era, because one of the things that I'd never really noticed until this time, and I've seen this movie a handful of times, but
yeah.
it really struck me this time how it came out in 2007, but then, and actually it was Tracy who pointed this out to me, but when they're telling the story of the kids on the short bus, they say 30 years ago. So if the movie took place in, let's say it takes place in 2007, and we're looking at 77, but then there's like 50s cars on the street in the flashback, and
yeah, that's true.
the way the kids are dressed are very not late 70s costumes. I like the idea that, like, even though they say 30 years ago, it's just a long time ago. It's the 50s. We're just gonna go in that same way, like maybe in the 80s we'd say 30 years ago.
Because there are flip phones and shit like that in this movie.
But then later in the movie, Anna
80s,
Paquin pulls out her cell phone. So I'm like, well, then it's not. I was trying to retcon it in my head and get literal with it. Like maybe it takes place in the 80s.
No.
But then I think, no. It's just a hodgepodge idea. It's Halloween. It's in a state. It's in a city. And 30 years ago, and that's the 50s because it's the past. The whole thing reeks of, I don't want to say timeless, but flip phones. No one decorates their house like the opening scene the way that dude decorated his house, which was something you saw a lot more of in the 80s and stuff. So I like the whole thing, be it a flashback or the present, it's all bygone.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, that, you know what? I didn't think about the odd timelessness of the movie, because I'm so with this movie wherever it takes me, that like when I didn't even notice the 30 years ago, I just knew, oh, we're in the past now, and I just focused on how much it looked. But also orange sepia, like it's got that beautiful crisp autumnal feel. Oh, because that's another thing neither you or I really, or I mean, we were in different neighborhoods, but one thing I didn't get to experience were like orange crispy leaves. Like it would be the fall and the trees would be bare and maybe there's a pile of leaves but it's all brown, you know. We didn't get, I got to be on the East Coast for their autumns, and oh my god, like, you know, like walking through areas of New York and just kind of like it's and even the weather shift, like it's literally, there's like a night in September. I was in the city where there was a night in September where literally it was the last night of humidity, and the next day it was like, now it's autumn and it's cold. You need your jacket weather.
I'm
I
lucky.
love that.
I'm lucky that I grew up not for a long time, but I was born and lived in Virginia till I was almost 7. So I had fall. I had
Mm.
leaves changing. I lived across the street. Literally, on one side of the street was houses, the other side of the street was a forest. So I had the forest
Oh,
and raking them into piles and diving. So when I see even a movie like this, like I can smell
yeah.
what smells like and stuff. So I have that.
Oh my gosh.
But yeah, this
That
movie
sounds
to me,
amazing.
the only way I can describe it is it portrays Halloween bigger than life, quite literally, because aside from maybe like a friend who has the incentive to really decorate it, I don't know any. And no offense, I have a friend who really does go all out for Halloween, but no one's front yard looks like that dude's front yard. And I can't remember his name right now, but the guy in the opening scene, I just go, oh, Battlestar Galactica. But him and Leslie Bibb. That's the
Yes,
reason it's
Mrs. Sam
timeless.
Rockwell.
When she says go put in the tape. Even in 2007, like we come from a generation that know what the tape is. It's a fuck tape. It's porn.
Yeah.
But like even in 2007, like people were watching DVDs. But she says put in the tape. So it's all sort of a mishmash of timeline.
And see, all I hook into in that moment is the fact that like she says it with such kind of disdain, like she's doing him a favor, and I just think like, God, I'm glad I'm not in a relationship. But that's all I think about when you have to barter.
I don't see. I mean, if we're getting nitpicky, I don't see total disdain. I feel, but yeah, it's weird because he's pouty, and then I don't know. But there's like a smirk.
It's the progression of the whole thing. Yeah. It just makes me think like, oh well, do him a favor, why don't you? But see then, and I think I don't like her, but then like almost in the next moment when she starts taking stuff down, she sees kids, because you think I every time I rewatch this, I feel myself kind of go when I see her. And I actually forgot this time watching the screening but there's kids who are like running down the street, like, you know, laughing and having a great time in their costumes, and she doesn't do a Scrooge thing. She doesn't go like, oh god. She's got this bright smile on her face, and she looks so kind of like for a minute, for a collection of seconds, she looks kind of enchanted by the evening, like she's over it, but she can still kind of remember that it used to be fun or something.
She says, I hate Halloween, so like
she does. Yeah, right.
I always forget that I don't like her until she's like, let's take all this shit down. What? And then she's even alone, she's like, I hate Halloween. Yeah, okay. All right.
But even her attitude when she's coming home, like I see her walking down and I'm just like, oh wow, you're a lot of fun, you know. Halloween night.
I
like what a night to pop an attitude.
What else about the relationship is good so that that justifies going out with someone like this? But I mean, also it's a nice gimmick right from the get-go that like the quote unquote rules of Halloween, or at least the traditions. I mean, the movie in the very, very first just couple minutes gives you the idea of the not blowing out your candles and make sure you give out candy, like all the. It's funny that it took up to 2007 for someone to do what had already been done for like there are several Christmas movies that pinpoint the traditions of Christmas. But to make a movie that, one, pinpoints the traditions of Halloween, and two, attempted to create an iconic mascot for Halloween. That's iconic. I think he has become iconic, but to create the mascot for Halloween. Yeah. We've had Jack Skellington, but I mean, even then that skews to a very specific thing, whereas we have our leprechauns and we have our Santa Claus, we have the Easter Bunny, and for the intent of this movie to create that, those two things make the movie magical, especially for a generation who probably don't know about blowing out the candles or not taking down your decorations until whenever, or how important it is to give out candy, or how important it is to check your candy. All these little things. That's another reason why I love the movie, is because it's more so than many other movies that maybe are set at Halloween. It is about Halloween. So if you and also
it's like this wonderfully digestible history lesson. You
Yeah.
know, like it doesn't feel like you're sitting in history class, but you're getting within a narrative context, like all of this information about this holiday, which
Yeah.
kids are, I think, you know, supposed to. It's kind of like you're supposed to enjoy Halloween. It's for you,
Kids
really.
used
You
to
know,
know
like.
Uh, I love that
Hmm.
the little, first of all, props because they include Samhain and they pronounce it correctly. But the
Yeah.
fact that that girl, she rambles off again. It is kind of like a history lesson explaining where Halloween and Samhain come from. Uh, and then
Yeah.
just props to Michael Dougherty for naming Sam from Samhain. I just think that's like the perfect name for that character. Uh,
Yeah.
yeah. Also, a
I
thing
also love, yes.
another thing I just appreciate going on like the bigger than life Halloween celebration Halloween is the way the movie's photographed.
Hmm.
Because even though it would be classified as horror, there's
Hmm.
nothing about this that looks particularly eerie or gloomy, where like evil is looming, let alone the era like what 2005 2006 and that whole like Saw era and rebooting everything and remaking everything, and so much of it was grimy. And the fact
Hmm.
that not only is this movie not grimy, but that it's atmospheric, and it's atmospheric in the way like the night feels crisp and warm, and the movie itself doesn't feel like it's necessarily trying to scare you. It's trying to just invite you into like the Halloweeny vibe of it.
Exactly.
That
And
matters.
also entertain you, like make you laugh too. I
Yeah.
mean, there are some great laughs in this that aren't necessarily. Well, this is an odd thing to say, but I mean, I feel like the era that this movie came out in, also like if you were laughing in a horror movie, it was probably at somebody's expense. And while that's kind of true of this movie, it's in a completely different way. It plays into kind of like the slapstick of the violence sometimes, or even sometimes just the overtness of the violence happening in. It's not happening like in a dungeon or some kind of industrial um loft or warehouse somewhere. It's like literally happening in the houses on your street. And there hadn't I always discovering horror where you live, whatever subgenre it is always so incredibly effective because it's so simple. You don't have to work that hard to remind somebody of what scares them in their home or what could be going on in the homes on their street. You don't know. Hey. I was just going to say also, when you're talking about like a mascot, like Michael Myers is not to Halloween as Santa is to
No,
Christmas, even though I think a lot of people equate him with Halloween, and rightly so.
he's a
Um,
movie called Halloween, but he is not the mascot. He is not the Easter Bunny.
I don't know the spirit of, yeah, like it'd be odd. I'd feel it almost does the character a disservice to put him on calendars, you know, where you flip to October and there, and you know, you got Santa and you got, you know, a turkey, and you got like, but then you'd go back one more and there's Michael Myers. I mean, it doesn't work. Sam also, because he is a kid, it works a great deal.
I adore him.
Yeah, I from the get-go,
Instant.
he's just the fact that like the first thing I hear from him reminds me of Ewok noises, and
His breathing.
just his little. It sounds like an Ewok underneath like a sheet, like trying to be quiet and discreet.
Mhm.
But I also love the fact that there's an homage. An homage, you have to be, yeah, there you go. You have to be careful, because if it's too heady, it pulls me out of the experience. It doesn't plunge me into exactly kind of what I need. And what I love is the first thing we see him do with the tracking shot, it reminds me of obliquely, it doesn't feel like a ripoff or even a big block letter homage, but just watching someone on a child's level moving around, you know, discreetly a neighborhood on Halloween night reminds me of the boy, you know, Michael Myers in the beginning of Halloween. Um, and even there's so, I mean, also the homages, I feel like I'm going to be getting them for the rest of my life, because just this last viewing, for the first time I was watching, during the opening credits, there was just one still. It was a drawing in the comic book, which I love, of Rhonda and all of the other kids, like, you know, taking the pumpkins to the side of the bus, and it had an orange glow behind it that it doesn't have in the movie. And it immediately, just with Rhonda's hat and with the other trick-or-treaters, like obviously like all kind of like moving in this lean, it reminded me of the old season of The Witch. Yeah. Halloween 3 movie poster. And it just gets me so excited. And you don't have to kind of get these references to get looped in, but if you do, it's just kind of like, oh, like that's from my childhood. And I guess I'm an easy target also, but
the opening credits alone are running a creep show. Yeah, you're right, the opening scene is very Halloween without ever feeling derivative once.
Yeah. The scary person, when Leslie Bibb is taking all the shit down, and the first threat she kind of perceives is what we find out is a trick-or-treater who's like, just, you know, like waiting for somebody to come pick him up, and it's just a kid, tall kid in a mask. Simple threat. Like, you don't have to work that hard. Like, that is creepy. If I saw it right now outside my front door, I'd be shutting the windows, and I'd just be like keeping a little bit more vigilance. Like, okay, where is this person going? Are they watching me, or are they waiting for something? You know, and I can't look too obviously. I mean, immediately, like, I'm in it. I know, even though I haven't experienced that exact scenario, it's so easy to click into. Yeah.
I got a question for you.
Yes, please.
Of the 4 primary stories, which one's your favorite?
You know I don't do favorites well either. Curse you. Well, what's your favorite? Well, I think.
My close.
Do you have a favorite?
I hate to put it second because it features Sam primarily, but that one gets to be second. I really, really do appreciate Rhonda and the kids in the quarry. Because there's 4 stories in this. 2 of them are fairly straightforward: the old man and Rhonda's story, and then the other 2 have twists, but not all 4 stories have twists. And I found out, I think it was like on the making of on the Scream Factory edition that like I was surprised when he was talking about writing it. He initially had already written 2 short films, and I'm like,
yeah.
And it was the 2 that have twists, and I'm like, that seems like such a short story thing to do. No, and I don't mean that as a bad way, but like if you want to create like a tight 10-minute story and then you have a twist ending. So I wasn't surprised that the 2 twist ending ones were originally short stories, and then the other 2 aren't. But first of all, I just immediately feel for Rhonda.
Yeah.
I immediately don't trust the kids. I love the fact that she decorated her house so heavily. Just the timber of
she
her
carved
voice.
all those pumpkins, all those jack-o'-lanterns.
I don't know medically what she's got going on, but I just I love me a good shitty kids losing story. Like I like a good revenge tale. And that's actually I didn't really think about this, but at least as a reason why I like it. But I've always respected movies where kids, when the director respects the audience enough to put kids in real peril. One of the things I love about Attack the Block is Attack the Block stars a bunch of 12 and 15-year-olds, and some of them fucking die in that movie. And this movie, some kids fucking die in this movie. In the flashback on the bus, although they become undead, so does that count? But no, there's no more greater satisfaction I have in this movie than when Rhonda runs back to the elevator and you just leaves them. And you know, is it weird? I mean, I'm cheering on killing kids, but I'm not, because nothing about this movie feels like it's a realistic thing. It's in a weird way, the whole thing feels like a fable. It's a tale. To me, honestly, this movie makes me feel like I'm reading scary stories to tell in the dark. And this is like the fate of these kids. That's what you get for being mean to someone.
Because this is the thing. Every single one of them, in their way, are morality tales. violence.
Yes.
And there's something about that my whatever part of me that still reacts as a child
Brian Cox
really hooks
and
into
his
it.
whole story is a morality tale.
Yeah, but I think they all are. It's all like, I feel like if a kid were to see this movie for the first time, they'd get it the way kids got,
Grimm's fairy
and I
tales.
mean the movie and not,
Like Grimm's fairy
Oh,
tales.
but I mean,
Yeah.
sure, but even more specifically, I'm going back to like our era, more so than the book, the movie Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory. Parents were in an uproar because like kids are dying and whatever, and oh, that's so horrible, and the man lies the whole movie. Why would I want to show my children this? It's a nightmare. And it's like, but kids got it because they understood, you know what? All you had to do was follow the fucking rules and you would have lived.
And not be
All you had
shithead.
to do, yeah, do what you're told and don't be a shitty trash person. This is actually why I'm enjoying it at this particular moment in our history also, because to be a trash person in these movies is to suffer dire consequences and just take you out of the running.
Yeah, well, okay. So Brian Cox murdered kids. These kids were mean to a special needs kid. The
Dylan Baker,
Dylan
Principal
Baker,
Wilkins.
like, don't prey upon and murder women. And then it's the only questionable one.
And kill kids. And kill kids.
And kill kids. See how that's not on my priority list as much. And then the first part, Dylan Baker's main story, I guess the only morality is the bad Santa kid, like don't take too much candy and break pumpkins.
And also wearing one of those fucking t-shirts that says, "This is my costume. Fuck you, kid." I get so angry because
I don't know if he deserved to die for his sins, but
he's again shitty ass trash person, and my inner child watching this movie, just kind of like, you know what? If you hadn't been a glutton, and if you hadn't been lazy, I mean, here we're talking 7 deadly sins too. I didn't even think about that. I was raised Catholic. What can I say?
Me too.
Like, you know, fire and brimstone was part of my upbringing. You know, it was right there in the Bible. And then it was in the fiction, like the children's fiction that I read that my parents allowed me to read. That I'm very, very glad they did. But I mean, does it warrant like an actual death? No, and that's why Dylan Baker's character, Principal Wilkins, pays the price ultimately, and why it's so satisfying, because I feel like if this movie had ended, even though he's as entertaining as he is with his performance, Dylan Baker, before I go on with that idea, Dylan Baker I was introduced to in the movie Happiness. It doesn't get a lot of traction these days. Not a lot of people talk about this movie or remember it. I don't remember I just remember the movie.
Welcome to the Dollhouse.
Yeah. I just remember Todd Solondz. Is that it? Okay. Sorry, Todd, if you're watching. But we're talking about your movie, so get over it. Because this movie was the first thing I ever saw Dylan Baker in, and he plays a pedophile. Really, really dark storyline, because he's got a son. He falls in love with one of his son's friends and tries to push his son to have a sleepover with this kid so he can ellipses. I don't need to fill in the blanks. But it's horrible, right? On paper, I'm saying it, and it sounds horrible. Dylan Baker makes it watchable, and you're still repulsed. But he's one of those actors, Brian Cox is another one, we'll get into that in a second, who can make the most despicable acts. Despicable is a big word that I'm using with these movie videos. I'm realizing I used it throughout Final Destination Breakdown. But can make these despicable people, these kind of like these people who commit unforgivable acts on a societal level and on a personal level, but can still make it palatable to watch them. They're not playing monsters, they're playing people who behave monstrously. And because they're able to find a sliver of, dare I say it, humanity, I don't mean for sympathy, I just mean for watchability. You can sit there and you can watch this man map out this horrible plan to violate a child, and I don't. I watch it the same way I used to watch the horror movies when I was a kid, where I was like, I'm scared. I really shouldn't be watching this. Really shouldn't be entertained by this. But for some reason, I can't look away. And actually, while we're on that note, Brian Cox is another actor. It's great that he plays another character who performs in a reveal. Performs an unforgivable act and has to atone for it, but has to be punished for it, because the first time I ever saw Brian Cox, he was playing a pedophile too, in a movie called Lie. It was the first thing I ever saw Paul Dano in. It's a little boy. Paul Dano, have you seen this movie?
No.
Or heard of this movie? Okay. It was at film festivals and everything like that, and it's basically about like I won't go into the specifics, but basically, like, you got little boy Paul Dano and you've got adult Brian Cox, and it doesn't go the route you think it would, even if you've seen the trailer. But Brian Cox, again, playing an unforgivable character, committing unforgivable acts, and yet he makes it palatable, he makes it watchable, which is why I think Michael Dougherty would have occurred to him to cast actors like that in these roles, because we need to be able to watch them. We need to be able to see them. Like, the movie can do what it can do to set the stage and make things fun, but we're watching adults abuse children in this movie in a different way. But we have to, even at the time of the reveal, like, there's some weird insight we almost have, like, to what's going on behind their eyes. It's not like we cut ourselves off and go like, yeah, because you're disgusting. It's more just kind of like, I mean, you did something horrible. Come on, pay. It's time. I'm glad a filmmaker took care of me and made you pay a price.
And
kind
the
of thing.
insight
Does that make sense?
in their eyes, it does make sense, especially in Dylan Baker's
Yeah.
case, where like the inside behind his eyes is just icky and definitely makes me want him to die. I mean,
Yeah.
And this movie also functions interestingly that because two of the stories are twists, and even Brian Cox's story is kind of a reveal.
Yeah.
You can only watch it the one time, not knowing everything, and then everything. But it plays well watching this movie a second time, knowing the context of what you're watching.
Yeah.
So you understand Dylan Baker's relationship with his son.
Mm-hmm.
And we'll get to the werewolves, but like pretty much everything with the girls' dialogue, means something the first time, then means something else the second time.
Absolutely. Yeah.
I'm glad you brought up Dylan Baker, because he's someone I've also really liked. And just on a personal note, I loved the idea of him as Dr. Connors in Spider-Man, and it pissed me off that we went through 3 movies where, like, we talk about Dr. Connors and then we cast Dylan Baker. He's going to be Lizard someday, and then fuck, we're rebooting it and someone else gets to be Lizard. I'm like, Dylan Baker was Dr. Connors and he never got to be Lizard. And
No. Me too.
I always wanted my Dylan Baker Lizard, man.
And also he's one of those people who has like hundreds and hundreds of credits. He's in the background of pretty much everything you've ever seen. First time I noticed him after Happiness was he was a small part in Requiem for a Dream, but memorable. And I mean, I think he has less than 30 seconds of screen time, but it stands out. And Brian Cox, same thing, just like in everything, rarely starring in anything. So, I mean, you've got these incredible character actors playing these roles. Oh, because also you brought up the wolves too, and that made me realize, for the first time this screening, I also realized this weird Halloween motif with wearing costumes. A large part of this movie is about wearing costumes. It's about, and I mean, like, disguising your identity so you can, I guess, live somebody else's life, whether it's just for the night or whether it's over a period of years, like Krieg, Brian Cox's role. I mean, he went into hiding and just became a curmudgeonly old man.
He doesn't
and we
clean
thought,
his house. Like, he stopped living, basically.
Yes. I mean, the only kind of healthy relationship he seems to have is with the dog, Spite. I wrote it twice, just at different points in my notes. I was just kind of like, Spite the dog. I love that name for his dog. Yeah. Spite!
I love they got hit. I mean, I presume, Brian Dougherty, before directing this, wrote X-Men 2 and Superman Returns, and Ryan Singer produced and helped get this going. And I gotta presume part of it is relationships that were built that allowed him to get Anna Paquin and Brian Cox from the X-Men franchise.
Sure.
In this. But what a blessing, because Brian Cox he's been working for decades, and he is I've always liked him, especially because of his range, because he can be in something as stupid as Super Troopers, but also he was Hannibal Lecter, like between Rushmore and the Bourne movies and this, I mean,
he even played, and then on the flip side, like he played Daphne Moon's father on Frasier, and he's one of those actors who again can adopt any accent, and it sounds like you've talked that way your entire life. Yeah. It's crazy.
Yeah. And it takes a lot to, I think, to believably play scared. So to have him being alone in a house and maintaining that, but also it takes a real damn good actor to be like, well, it's gonna just be you in a house for a lot of it. Like it's you owning the scene, you commanding the camera, it's you. Like it's not just like number one on the call sheet. Like you're the fucking only one on the call sheet today. Like Jesus.
Oh, except for Quinn Lord playing Sam, an actual little boy.
Aside from when someone shows up, there's a lot of.
Oh yeah. I mean, he's just walking around a house being angry.
Again, going back to how much I love Sam, but I love the fact that aside from a few stunts, like they cast a little boy, and one of the things that succeeds is the way his body moves, the way his center of gravity, and just everything. And also, I love the mix of sound between genuine childlike sounds, but then also little screeches that are creature screeches.
Yeah. And even the way he grabs Candy, it's just. It's so charming. It just makes me happy because I mean, I applaud that. He's like a little. I mean, at that age, I think a lot of kids are just like little ids with feet, you know, and they can turn into chainsaws with feet. And
I always imagine
he does.
Not quite human.
Yeah, I mean, he's got pumpkin guts.
A child in him, but I mean, he's clearly more than just a man. Like he is.
Yeah, and the fact that the design was a combination of a fetus skull and a pumpkin, an actual pumpkin, that was what inspired him for the design. Yeah, and when you look at it, it looks like a skull pumpkin. Like that. I mean,
where the head meets the jaw and everything.
Yeah.
And I love the idea that the other three stories, like he just sort of shows up in them. Like he's even in the flashback, the bus just drives by and he's out by a cornfield. I love that he's sprinkled throughout. So we're telling stories about Halloween, we're telling morality tales, and he's just always kind of there, either along the sidelines or just kind of presiding amongst, over the tale. But then we actually get just one story where he is in it, he isn't just sprinkled out. But I love the fact that we like lead to that.
Oh yeah, because we're so endeared by him.
I love when Rhonda fucking leaves the quarry and he's out there, and they just.
Okay, we have to talk about Rhonda for a bit.
We do. She's one of the highlights of the movie.
I mean, with the second you said it, I mean, I was already thinking, like, I think that is my favorite because it's also provocative on a lot of levels. In terms of just like maybe what your own history as a kid is, because I have the good fortune in my youth to have been on both sides where you're part of the pack and somebody is the subject of your ridicule. I've been it made me think about it because it's happened to me twice when I was in grade school where literally I was a member of a pack not attacking, but I mean, with that kind of mob, let's make fun of this person. Let's make them feel insignificant and small. And on both occasions, this is shameful. On both occasions, they were my friends, so I know what it is at a really, really early age to kind of forego your better judgment, or for your better judgment to maybe not even occur to you until it's too late, and for you to just kind of continue to go on with that group. That's why I feel like when they get punished, I don't feel bad about them being punished, because I'm just kind of like, well, I should have been punished too.
It never
I
occurs to me
mean,
once to be like, oh, but they're children. Like, no.
no, not at all. That was a horrible thing to do. And I totally, again, and then when I was, because I didn't start to really kind of like be on the other side of it until I was advancing in years, like when I was in junior high and high school. And by then, even though it was happening to me, I was never really susceptible. I never ran out of a room crying. I was never brought to tears by a room full of my peers making fun of me or ostracizing me in any way. However, I have been on the other side of it. But when people would, like, you know, make fun or do whatever they do, I was also, I don't think old enough. I think I always just kind of had this kind of hubris. I didn't care. I didn't care what people who thought bad shit about me thought. And I didn't care if they wanted to make a fool out of me. I just kind of like just moved on, just kind of made a face and just rolled my eyes and moved on. I didn't care. I know not everybody has that luxury either. Like, that's even a point of like privilege. But so on that end, it's really liberating watching Rhonda to push that button and just not care, because I get it. And I'm just kind of like, you know what? They had their chance, and it doesn't matter how they feel now. I mean, it's so weird to talk this way because I'm very, very conscious that people are going to be watching this, and I don't know what they're going to think. But I will say, I don't feel bad for them, even a little bit. I'm just kind of like, you know what? You did the crime. You do the time.
We're not talking about a very realistic story. We're talking about morality. So
yeah, well, because that's the morality thing. It's like they pretended to be these dead kids. Here they brought jack-o'-lanterns. Thank you for reminding me. They brought jack-o'-lanterns to kind of like offer to them, and then kicked them into the lake and put out the light, which you're not supposed to do. We know now because of the movie. And the fact that she was taking such good care of like just that one kid. I don't remember his name, but the one who's just like a pirate in the elevator. She's like,
that's my
you
favorite
want to come or whatever? Yes. And he's just like, and she's just like, okay, you stay here. And the lights, you know, they'll protect you. And I'm like, the fact that she like knows this, first of all, brava, because I believe her. And secondly, she's a kind-hearted person who's also open to believing the shit that she needs to survive in this movie. Because even before then, when she's sitting there and she hears the howling, she's like, werewolves. And I'm like, you're right. You are absolutely right. Those are werewolves. I love you. I do nothing but love you in this movie. But then when she finally crosses a line, I'm like, she's driven to this point. It's not in her nature. And they shouldn't have mocked those dead kids. They shouldn't have played this elaborate trick on you that traumatized you, made you hit your head on a fucking rock and go unconscious. And then not even be that sorry about it. Like, one kid expresses remorse about it, yet he was the one who you thought was on your side like this whole time. So how the fuck can you ever believe a word that comes out of his mouth? Right. So it brings out, yeah.
I'm glad you brought up the pirate kid, because to me it's a 1-2 punch of why I love her. Because that, to me, I already just sort of liked her. I related to her. I cared about her, but it's not till that moment. Because initially, when those pumpkins go out, jack-o'-lanterns go out, and they're like screaming and stuff, her first instinct is to leave the elevator and go check on them. And that sells me on everything. Like, okay. Then she has to turn and ask him, like, are you coming? And he's like, no. But just the fact that her instinct is to go help.
Yeah.
I already love her. And then the fact that she's like, and I love the delivery, though. She's like, okay, well, then you stay here and keep the lights up. They'll protect you. Like,
Her name is Sam Todd, the actress who plays Rhonda. And I was watching, you know, the special features. I still haven't finished. There's so many on this collector's edition for Trick or Treat. But
compared to the fucking original Blu-ray, which had like one little 19-minute nothing.
Right. I was watching one of the vintage things that they had. Just like, I guess they took a lot of interviews and just made a whole other documentary-like thing or featurette. And it had her walking down the street in the, afterwards, even though it's not chronologically after, she knows where she is. And they ask her, so what do you do? She's like, well, I'm Rhonda. This is my red wagon. And I'm escaping the scene of a crime. Just like, you were adorable. That is, I think I love you. I think, I know I love Rhonda, but I think I love Sam Todd too. And I love that her name is Sam also.
If there wasn't someone there to breathe that kind of life into it, so.
Yeah, I mean, because there's something, again, it doesn't feel like a lot of these kids were acting for the first time. I don't know if she was one of them, but whatever point in her acting career this was, she hadn't lost this authenticity and this ability to not play charming, but merely be charming on a camera and just win my heart and make me root for her no matter what. Even her exchange with Sam, which isn't, there's no words. They just kind of regard each other like they do, not like everything short of like tip their hat to one another and just go about their business. But I love that that it makes sense to me, this weird morality tale mentality that I'm watching her with her wagon, with her jack-o'-lantern. She's in her costume. She's obviously a little raw. I think Sam would perceive that. I love the fact that he just lets her be. She's done everything right.
Absolutely gets
fine. That. Yeah. So
in fact, I almost understand that, like, aside from the, whatever, if you want to call it mischievousness, but the murder that's happening down there. But I think also as the Halloween spirit, and this is just me projecting my thoughts into it, but like, I think he understands the tragedy of things too, and understands what she, like, that this night can have victims too, and he gets what she is and what she's going through.
And if he's truly the spirit of Halloween, he's been around a long time, so he knows what's in that quarry.
Yeah,
he knows the story, and he knows
that all those why kids, the bus is sticking out.
Right? Yeah.
Because I love the line of like, wait, if all this was if this was fake, then how'd you get the bus? I'm like, well, shit. Yeah. And that's the other thing about the scene that's so great. The basics of it is just because I don't think this movie's scary. I just don't. I think it's a great time. And I as a good example, there's a friend of mine who loves Halloween, but she hates scary movies. And one of the years for Halloween, I brought Trick or Treat, and she like shit her pants, loved it. She was like, it's not scary, but it's great. It's Halloweeny, and I love it.
That's great. Okay, cool.
I think if there's any recommendation, if you're watching this and haven't had it ruined for you yet, it's a great movie to watch at Halloween if you don't like horror movies. However, the gross, gunky kids from the quarry in their costumes, and they're all with the chains. I mean, it's creepy. And if you were alone in that quarry and they were coming after you, like, that is some spooky shit. That is.
Also, yeah, and also just the beginning of the whole thing with Mr. Krieg, Brian Cox, scares me because it's a creaky old house, and you don't quite know what point of the anthology, if you can call it that. It's like a sliding doors kind of anthology. It's not like here's the chapter and it ends, and here's the next chapter and it ends. Even though love Creepshow, love that too. Yeah. I
mean, it's funny because it's always considered an anthology movie, but like I've always also argued, but obviously technically it's not, because it's structured the way like Pulp Fiction is, where we're playing with time and we're also overlapping. So this character walks by here, and it's very Pulp Fiction-y. But I was blown away to find out that it was written as Creepshow.
Yeah.
And then edited in post to be Pulp Fiction. I mean,
which is remarkable.
With the crossover characters, but it was still supposed to be 4 isolated tales. And I love that it's not, even though I do appreciate a good anthology movie. I really do. But I think this is the only one that's like this. It makes it an anomaly, and it keeps it kind of fresh.
I think so. Yeah. And I appreciate Michael Dougherty recognizing
my brain to do so.
Yeah, and also, I mean, the simple recognition on his part, Michael Dougherty's part, that it just felt too long. Like literally, it's just going to like, and here's the thing, and it begins and it ends. Here's the thing, and it begins and ends. And his sensitivity as an audience member, his insight as a director to be able to actually kind of be like, I mean, also the fact that it's his baby. He wrote it, he directed it. He's going to put his name on this thing, and it's going to be his thing. So it has to play. If he's not entertained, and if it feels like slow to him, then it's going to feel slow to other people.
Look, I
like
like
that.
anthology movies, but when I think
Yeah.
of Trilogy of Terror and when I think of the original Tales from the Crypt, like you're right, you do get the momentum of a beginning, middle, end, and then you start again, and then the thing ends, and you go, okay, now we're starting a new thing. So I get it, but
Yeah.
I'm prepared for it. But I get it.
Yeah, it's a very particular thing, but it works incredibly well for this movie. I'm glad that they made that too. One more thing about the kids on the bus, though. Like the thing that won my heart with that. There's a few things actually, because this is another thing that scares me. That kid in the Dracula mask.
Oh,
he doesn't scare me on his own. What scares me is at the end when I don't even remember the line he says to Brian Cox. What does he say?
it's trick or treat.
He just says trick or treat.
Huh.
The tone, the fact that it is so obviously a child or like a prepubescent boy, because it's in a little bit of a lower register, but it sounds like a young kid saying it. And the fact that I know where it's coming from, he does it very well. And it's all behind a mask, so good for him. Because the threat, it's not like it's fluffy and there's no there's no threat.
There is
I would not want to open my fucking door, even if I weren't Brian Cox. If it were just me, I open my door and I just see like a bunch of trick-or-treaters like standing there, and one of them says in a voice like that, trick or treat, I just slam the door. I'm scared, but also because of his desperation leading up to it. He's the one who we kind of get to spend, I guess, the most screen time with on the bus. And the fact that they're called dirty secrets, these kids, they're children.
Yeah.
And the fact that they're spoken about like they were different, they were this, they were that.
Inconveniences, yeah.
Yes, but even the way, I mean, and I again, it helps thinking that this might take place against a backdrop of a 1950s kind of thing, because 1950s are notorious for being kind of like all about appearances and conservatism and a kind of moral high ground, and always creating a veneer of success. And I mean, that's what Americana is like, this achievement of the American dream, and like Pleasantville level of contentment and blandness,
and
the fact that these
into our
don't, and because they don't fit, they get wrapped in blankets and put masks on and chained to benches to bus seats, and pay this man who has the inclination to do. I mean, again, this is where the costumes, like here you've got Americana and you've got everything I just described, yet there's like, a blight on it in their opinion. There's like a smudge on the painting, if you will, and they just want to get rid of it. They just want to edge it out and let's just cut the painting here so we don't have this like thing that obstructs the lovely vista, and let's make it a perfect picture, and the only way it's going to do is just like get rid of it. And that feels largely costume oriented as well, rooted in appearances and rooted in facades. And I fucking love it as an audience member, and as a film fan file, but it creeps me the fuck out because they feel like real children. When you see the hands, there's different qualities to the hands, so there's like different ages playing in, and they all seem, maybe some of them are differently formed, and maybe some of them are just like in a mental state that's not typical. And it hurts me when I have to hear that kid wanting to go home and wanting to get off the bus, and then seeing him in a position of power. Oddly enough, I'm not in the same position as I am with Rhonda going, yeah. I'm like, oh, fuck.
Yeah, well, I'm glad you're bringing
scary shit.
One of the things I always just found interesting about them in general was the idea that in any other kind of story, the zombie kids coming to kill you, they would be the quote-unquote bad guys. They would be the monster. But the idea that we set them up like they are victims. Therefore, when they're showing up, even though they are ghoulish, they are not, at least in my eyes, the monster. yet they're still presented as it. And from Brian Cox's point of view, they absolutely are. But it's the imagery and what they do to the kids, but also who I know what they really are, and the fact that they are tragic and that they are, whether their souls are at rest or it's just pure old-fashioned revenge, but the fact that it's two opposing things. And I love the idea too that Brian Cox, his story when he's dealing with Sam, you know, he gets the opportunity, like in a Scrooge-like way, like you feel like it ends with he learns his lesson. He has an encounter. He comes this close to dying. Sam lets him go, and he goes. Whew. And the next thing we see is him treating the trick-or-treaters better, and you're like, oh, what a nice way to end it. Like the very first time I saw it, I really thought that was the ending. He learned his lesson. Fuck you know.
I'm actually fortunate enough that the second and third times that I saw this movie, it was far enough removed from my first viewing that I remembered certain things. Like, I mean, the werewolf scene, like the bonfire and that's probably one of the most memorable things. But I remembered the opening with Dylan Baker. I just didn't remember kind of where it landed. So I think the second and third time I had completely forgotten the reveal of who he really is when he spends the rest of his night apart from his son. And I forgot that Brian Cox had that twist. So I got to experience that, oh shit, like multiple times. So I'm really grateful to the movie for that.
I love every once in a while when they manage to forget something and experience it again. But one thing I can't forget, because it leaves such an impression to me, is the werewolves. And I don't know how long I want to dwell on this, but I absolutely like the idea that when you watch it the first time, you get the sense that obviously there are these girls, and they're party girls, we're going to go to a party, and when we're referring to her first time, you're led to them thinking it's about sex and finding a date and not necessarily finding someone to eat.
Your first meal.
And you know, all the little lines. Mom always said she was the runt of the litter. I mean, things land so differently that I actually prefer watching it now knowing, because
absolutely, so much more interesting.
I like what Anna Paquin's playing. In fact, what everyone's playing, because it has to play both versions. And it's a very, very difficult thing to do, where you're not giving it away the first time you see it, but you're also not playing it so true that it doesn't work the other way. And also on paper, just the basics of, you want to talk about a Halloween trope, it's girls going out and partying in a Snow White outfit that looks like that, in a Bo Peep or Cinderella costume that looks like that. But you're playing with that, the imagery of it and the idea of it, but these aren't bimbos, they are fucking predators. But they're still playing feminine. And I think, there's plenty of werewolf tales, but especially in their human form, that they're already predators. That they're already the fucking lionesses, if you will. But then, then you get to the actual woods, because I presumed foolishly the first time I saw this that, you set up who you find out later is Dylan Baker's character, but you set him up as a predator, and he's going on those stupid vampire fangs, and then you set up that Anna Paquin is dressed as
Little Red Riding Hood.
And then you've got the "My, my, how big your eyes are," and which is funny because he's saying that to her, and it's like, oh, dude, you don't even fucking know. But you get to that straight away in the woods, and you think, like, this is what the movie's building towards. This is what we've been setting up. Like, I need a date, and then here's a guy, and he's a predator, and she's Red Riding Hood.
Right.
But then that's to me the big, like, I did not see that coming.
No.
The idea that, it's not ingrained in like werewolf lore, but just the idea that, like, no, this is like a thing we do. Like, we eat dudes, and like she wants her first time to be special. I'm like, okay, all right. I'm glad she ate Dylan Baker of all people. But then you realize like just the idea of, oh no, we've got an extra guy here for you. Because I mean, all the tropes of you think like there's a guy for her to bang or to make out or whatever, that this is
Right.
their party, that this is what they do on Halloween. Because how often do you see movies where like, this is what the monsters and the ghouls do for fun on Halloween?
Yeah.
That's that's fun.
And also playing on this costume theme, like you think the costumes are, this sad excuse or exciting excuse, titillating excuse, depending on, what side your bread is buttered on. Huh?
It is what they use to attract the men so they can eat them.
Yeah, it's the costumes aren't Bo Peep, Snow White, Cinderella, and Red Riding Hood. The costumes are like an easy girl.
Yeah.
Who's dressed in as slutty Cinderella to draw you in. I also want to bring up just like because
and the fact that they remove that costume and it's treated as a costume, like the skin when it breaks in the back is like when you unzip a dress. I like that it is for them, because here's the thing, okay? I don't like in media when the werewolves, I think the first time I saw it was Van Helsing, when instead of transforming, morphing,
I was just gonna say
the skin comes off and then the werewolf underneath. Generally,
he tears his skin off and everything. It looked awful.
I understand the idea to do something different, but to me, like, no, the whole point is to see a transformation. I think it's a cop out. I think it's uncreative, even if it's gory to see the skin come off. I think it's.
I could see the idea too. I didn't feel it. It wasn't something that worked. In this movie, it
was the first time they did it right, and because they're doing it to say something about the idea of their clothes being costume, but also the idea of the fact that they are wearing their skin quite literally as something over their true nature, and that they treat it so that when one of them like reaches and rips it up the way you rip off a shirt. The language of the transformation is the language of undress, and not just undress, but almost in a weird way like burlesque, because they'll take the arm and rip it. And I just thought of like the long gloves, like they were one step away from doing this,
Yeah. There might be takes somewhere of them doing that. We don't know.
I would love it. Like if they weren't playing Manson and they were playing like, give me that sequel or something. I don't know. Burlesque.
I mean, that's not as. I mean, what I love about burlesque, because I have a lot of friends who do it, is it does feel empowering. It does seem to be like this movie, fun. And like these characters, like women, also I've seen men do it too, but like women predominantly kind of owning their sexuality, being comfortable in it, and teasing you. It's not like, look at these titties. It's like it's not about like, it's about the flirt. It's about the there's a language to it. There's choreography. There's a sense of humor
to the build up.
There's character, and there's other ways to there's, if they're acrobatic or if they're this or that, there's things that you can be impressed by. And I know that there are strippers, regular, like go to the strip joint, like strippers who are capable of doing these things too, who can entertain people. But there is an added, but there is like this. I feel like because it's such a, we're made to kind of see, because she's dressed as Red Riding Hood with Anna Paquin, and the way the scene that preceded it kind of played out, you're led to kind of believe she's going to be a victim. You're led to believe that when the body falls, maybe it's her, maybe it's something else. So to go from like this kind of like victimized state and this kind of like women looking for men trope that they turn on their head, and it turns into this ritualistic baying at the moon, and they're already like men who have been gutted. like it's kind of like seeing empty bowls of dip at the party, and then the new dip is brought in and he's the new dip, and he's looking around at all the other empty bowls and like, oh shit, I'm next. I love that. But I think there's something, I don't know, there's something about Sweet Dreams, and maybe also because I'm a huge Manson fan, this. something about the fact that it's such a guttural, like, I mean, what I love about him is when he would take the stage playing songs like that, there was something about that, about owning your power and about blending the lines about like what, I guess what's natural or what's inherently male or female. And there's something about that really, really works for me. I see where you're going with the but
Yeah.
I like seeing them empowered
I just thought it'd
too
be
much.
funny.
Yeah,
It's
it
funny,
would be funny.
It's funny that you mentioned Manson because I've seen this movie several times, but this was the first time I think, and I'm not 100% sure on this, I'm like 90% sure, but early in the movie, because you'll have a song playing in the background, so it's not as dominant, but obviously they're playing Manson's cover of Sweet Dreams for the big werewolf thing, but earlier when she's on the phone at the party, I could have sworn they're playing his cover of Cry Little Sister. And I went,
oh,
because I literally just watched Lost Boys like 2 days ago. So like that song is fresh in my head, not his version,
okay,
that song.
right.
And I'm like, are they just listening to Manson at this party? Because that's a fun party. Like just
I hope so, right?
But also
yeah,
like we're gonna do the covers, which he has many of.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Nobody does them better, in my opinion. But
I mean, for what it's worth, I think Weezer, Real Big Fish, and Manson are like the three best. Like, hey, they got good covers.
I hadn't thought about Real Big Fish in like a long time.
Big
You know what? Good point.
Yeah.
Yeah. Good on you. And Weezer's so much fun.
Yeah.
But can I say one thing though that I experienced? I think maybe the first 2 times that I rented this movie. I don't know if anybody else experienced this. Because I've got 2 different Blockbusters where I rented it. Both DVDs I got the first time I watched it skipped during the scene, so I got to see like the first sign that she was going to reveal her wolfdom, but her wolfedness. But then I didn't get to see the scene play out. I think the first time I literally I kept trying to like kind of fast forward and it wouldn't work. And then I just had to skip to the next chapter and just rewind as far as I could to picked up like right after. You just hear that wow, 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 from Sweet Dreams, and it moves on to the next scene. And I was like, oh, okay, well, I get the point. That would have been nice though to see that scene. That I was kind of waiting for that to happen. Second time, similar thing. It just scrambled and skipped through. Yeah. So that finally when I reached, and then it gave out at the end. I was like, what is wrong? Okay, there's like some conspiracy. Somebody's messing with these DVDs because they don't want to see, they don't want people to see women be empowered. I don't know. I developed my own little conspiracy theory, and it wasn't until the third time I watched it that I actually got to see the scene play out, and it was very satisfying. I was very happy for that. And I also want to give a mention, because I thought she did a really good job playing her sister. Lauren Lee Smith is the actress, because I feel I buy they don't look anything like they would be sisters or anything like that, but I buy the relationship. I like the fact that she seems to be straddling the world of like caring about her sister and wanting her to like, get what she wants, but also like, come on. Like, and also I've got my own night going on. Like, I mean, she's playing all of that, and she looked so familiar every time I watch this. I don't
know what I've seen you in. I've seen you in something. Yeah.
Yeah, the one thing I know for sure that I've seen her in, it's another kind of monster motif, so I wanted to mention it. Shape of Water. She plays Michael Shannon's wife.
Oh.
Yeah. So, yeah. So she's working. Good for her. And I thought she did a really, really good job. I just wanted it to be mentioned.
You know who did a really good job in this movie? And I don't know the name of the production designer, but I was shocked to find out when I watched the making of this. Mm-hmm. The Dylan Baker and Brian Cox's exterior backyards are fucking soundstage. The whole woods that the werewolves have their party in is a soundstage. And once they get down the elevator to the quarry, is
yeah. I was probably out of the room for the other stuff, but I remember that, yeah.
This has some of the best fake exteriors I think I've ever seen.
Yeah.
And it's very rare. It's hard to simulate sunlight and moonlight, but especially the backyard when Dylan Baker's digging, like, it feels like nighttime moonlight.
It does.
So yeah, props to them for that. The production design on this is excellent. And then also the fact that, you almost forget this, but like so much of this movie is practical, especially in it's like digital blood. Like there's a little bit, with like Anna Paquin howling. You can see it's digital, but like there's some digital enhancements, but there's so much. Like they built actual puppeteered like werewolves and performed werewolves. So much so that like you would even, when you look at it, you're like, that's a fucking person in a puppeted suit. But you know what? It looks great. The head cocks up and
I love
howls,
the look.
and I stare at it every time. This isn't a judgment, but you can see the bottom of the jaw and like where it just ends, and then there's like hair.
Okay.
You can see like they only built it to here. You can see like the hinge of it. I don't care. I love the fact that like it actually like kind of comes up next to her. Like.
Mm-hmm.
But almost every death or spooky thing in this, like when you watch this now in 2020, you're like, yeah, there's no digital ghoul. There's atmosphere. There's like a digital leaf flying, but like all the stuff, the puking, the kid from Bad Santa's head that's going to get carved, like everything's practical in this.
Yeah. Then another thing that makes it feel like of our childhood, back when practical effects were the thing. I mean, there were some things you could do optically, but even the optic things had like practical. I think about like one thing I loved watching over and over again was the making of Return of the Jedi when I was really young, like I think 4 or 5. But I just remember watching the puppets of them like on their little, I don't even know what they're called. You'll know what they're called, but yes, and just watching like the heads do that thing. Yes, I know you know. But just like watching the heads do that and everything like that. And
they would pivot at the waist and they could like I know, because personal story for everyone watching. So Eddie and I, when I was 13 and Eddie was 14, 15?
Yes.
We were in Russia.
14.
We were, long story short, we were doing a play. We were in Russia doing a show in Moscow. We were homestaying with these people, and the people had a few movies. And one of the movies they had on VHS was Return of the Jedi in fucking Russian. And and it was a night of like, oh, there was something comforting that like I knew from home. But we're watching it. And I get Eddie's running commentary during the speeder bike chase. He just goes, puppet, real person, puppet, real person, puppet. Like, thanks.
Wow.
Like the whole fucking scene. And I'm just sitting there.
I don't remember that at all. Oh shit, I'm sorry. I must have been really tired. I was also probably hungry too, because I remember, like, total sidebar, I just remember like that a night like that followed a spaghetti dinner of ketchup and gray meat. And as the marinara sauce, because they tried to do Italian for us, and they're Russian, and it was really sweet.
Sidebar too, I've had my fair share later in my life of being like, I don't want to say the ugly American, but like the not appreciating where I'm at and wanting to. But I feel like in Russia, I had a good mix of, oh, this is cool, what a fun experience, and oh, I miss home.
Yeah.
I remember when we first landed, because we connected somewhere, but we landed, and the first thing I did was I went to a vending machine and got a Dr. Pepper, and I was just like, Dr. Pepper. Yeah.
We stopped in San Francisco. I remember that. The first stop coming from Southern California. We met everybody up north, and then we all went to Helsinki, I think.
Yes.
And then from Helsinki, we went to Makba.
I'll never forget that, because the announcement person, we are going to the Helsinki, and I heard Helsinki like a million times. Helsinki, anyway, back to the movie though.
Yes.
One fun thing. I don't know if you have anything else to really say, but I feel like I'm wrapping up on this.
Okay, cool.
But I do.
I was really yes.
No, go ahead.
Yeah, I was really happy on the Blu-ray. Because I had never seen it before. I never like just kind of like gone down and watched like one after the other. I just kind of go like, oh, that sounds interesting and whatever. So I'm making my way down, and I saw Season's Greetings, the animated movie that this was all kind of like stemming from. This character that Michael Dougherty drew in the margins, like for years and years and years and years. And I love how tonally it fits with everything else, because again, it's got an incredible handmade quality. I can see the layers of paint or marker or colored pencil, whatever, was used in any specific animation cell. It was animated old school. And the fact that the handmade quality of it is apparent and endearing. And the fact that Sam feels like Sam and has, again, no lines, I don't even know if he makes a noise outside of like just like the Foley that they have going for like the knock at the door and his little footsteps and stuff like that. But he's poking like a baby doll. The fact that he's being pursued by an adult, and there's like that kidnapped child, the missing child photo in the beginning, so that there's somebody like kidnapping kids, and then here he is and he's following Sam. I assume it's a he. But the fact that like also that was another thing I noticed more so with this viewing was the threat of adults. And I thought, oh my God, it was laced in from the beginning, like, because it repeats. It's not just Principal Wilkins, and it's not just Mr. Krieg. Also, when the shitty kids who play the prank on Rhonda stop at that house. Yeah, and I don't even know how they know her. I guess she's another faculty member, maybe. I don't know. I don't remember how they know her, but she's offering them alcohol. And because it's a bygone era, it doesn't hold a threat. It doesn't feel like it's happening today. Like if an adult is offering a child alcohol on their porch on Halloween night, I feel like there's an extra threat, as opposed to like in a small neighborhood where it's somebody who's already kind of like a few drinks in themselves and just kind of wants to see what you'll do or give you an experience to remember this night. And their judgment is off because they've been drinking. It has, and the kids are smart enough to know, no thanks. You look silly. We don't want to be like you. We see all these people dancing to Tony, Tony, Tony in the background, dry humping each other. Adults are still kind of hard to figure out when you're, there's that margin between like adult and child. And but it's still, even though I don't feel a threat from it, I don't worry about what she's going to do after she gives them alcohol. It makes me, as an adult especially, makes me kind of go like, get yourself, as a kid, you want to extricate yourself from a situation like that as soon as possible.
They're not a threat, but they're certainly not a friend.
Yeah,
they're not a responsible thing that you can go to help for. Yeah.
No. But it's also clicking into that childhood, like when the first time it's okay to say no to an adult. Yeah. When you're starting to move toward adulthood. And so I love that I could draw that connection all the way back to Season's Greetings, which also had its own little twist where you expect that this little trick-or-treater is going to be the one, because we don't know what he looks like under his little kind of Charlie Brown shaped scarecrow mask. And but the fact that like we after we just see fists being thrown and they look like they're coming from above, you expect that, oh my God, how dark is this going? Like it's already kind of, with the wind blowing and the empty streets, it's got a threat to it. How dark is it going to go? And then you just see this little figure dragging this large body, which we know it's the body, in this sack. And I heave a sigh of relief. An adult is dead, but it's this morality thing. Just like, you know what? You shouldn't have messed with the wrong kid. You messed with the wrong kid tonight, fucker. And I'm comforted until the very end. And again, lines are escaping me. I don't remember if it's trick or treat or if it's good night or if it's happy Halloween. Whatever is said in a child's voice at the very end of the cartoon. I watched it twice because I watched it once with Michael Dougherty's commentary, but both times the commentary tracks out by then. So I just hear this little voice at the end of the cartoon say something. Maybe it's like Happy Halloween or trick or treat or whatever they say, but it's an obvious child's voice. Creep me the fuck out. Kids' voices, creepy. Especially I was watching it like after midnight last night and all the lights in the house were out. And I'm just sitting there alone, in silence, in darkness, like watching it. And I'm just like, I'm going to turn the light on. I don't know, because I'm going to start hearing noises around my house and it freaks me the fuck out. Yes, you were saying?
No, I haven't seen the original short since the first, maybe since 2008. I don't know, but I remember watching it. It was really good though.
Yeah.
What's fun, if I'm not trying to shill for Shout Factory or anything here, but I mean, the Blu-ray is such a great upgrade, not only for the new bonus content and the fact that I remember watching the Fear.net shorts when they're online, but to have them on disc so you can watch them on your TV, that's fun. Because if you want just the Fear.net shorts are kind of nothing, but at least you get to see Sam again.
Yeah.
Here's what makes it a worthwhile upgrade. Not worthwhile, because the bonus content is the worthwhile upgrade, the new produced content. But also the content that's been ported over from the previous Blu-ray. The previous Blu-ray, it was like, I think like at 720p and it wasn't anamorphically encoded. But at least now, like it is the same bonus content is now at least full HD for your TV. And I don't know why Warner's didn't do that in the first place, but I appreciate that Scream Factory did it for this release. So if you're a home theater nerd, just know that the old stuff's been upgraded. So yay. And the fact that we're talking about it being on Blu-ray, in my brain, I don't know about you, but to me, this is the best straight to DVD movie I've ever seen. I think it's fucking criminal that this did not get a theatrical, that it was filmed with theatrical release, that it went through the process, and then they're like, fuck it. Because I mean, I remember, I think it was 300, that when you bought 300, it had the little sticker that says plus preview for Trick or Treat on it. It was definitely a Warner Brothers release, but they were foolish enough to promote what they thought was going to be a theatrically released movie.
And then yoink it, yeah.
Yeah, but then but I love that, like, not only did it find its own footing within the horror community the way good things do through the home video release, but that it was like I remember it came out and like I mean the reviews on the internet were strong. I rented it like right away. I was already looking forward to it just because I'm like, oh, the guy who wrote X-Men 2 did this horror movie. I mean, it didn't take like years for me. Like, I instantly fell in love with it, and I instantly told everyone who was around me, like, "Have you seen Trick or Treat?" And you fucking see Trick. Oh my god! Oh, did you see the werewolf? And just instant. And yeah, the fact that Sam was so good that like I instantly fell in love with them, and there's still T-shirts and blah 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 blah.
Action figures and whatnot. Yeah,
I have a few. The only thing that gets me right now, if I have anything new to say on anything, is the fact that I think it was around the time that Dougherty was doing Krampus, that they had like a screening of Trick or Treat to promote, I think, Krampus. And he did like a Q&A beforehand, but they had the graphic of this on the screen, and the graphic said Trick or Treat 2. And he's like, I'm announcing we're doing a Trick or Treat 2. And I was like, cool. And now it's 2020. And like nothing. It's been like years and years and years and years. Part of me wants a sequel because more Halloween stories. And I know there was like a comic book that had like stories. But I've also reached this point where I'm like, or just don't, because the first one's great. And it works on its own, and we don't need a sequel. If they ever did one, I'll watch it. But I hate that we live in this contemporary. You didn't see this in the 80s or 90s very often, but you see it a lot now, and I can't fucking stand it. Where studios promote movies before they should be, when they don't even really exist yet. And if there is no Trick or Treat 2, like, then don't announce you're doing it. You know what I mean? And it happens to varying degrees. I think the most extreme degree was when at Comic-Con one year, they're like, oh, we're going to make Red Sonja with Rose McGowan, directed by Robert Rodriguez. And like, they got Rose McGowan to like sit in a garage against a green screen and strike a pose. And they made a poster, and that fucking movie's never happened. Guillermo del Toro's Haunted Mansion has never happened. The Rock has been talking about Black Adam for like a decade, you know. There's been some characters attached to The Flash.
Now you're hurting my heart.
They need to stop talking about movies before they happen. And they should never have said Trick or Treat 2 if, 7 years later, we still don't have a Trick or Treat 2. But we do have a Krampus, and Krampus is pretty damn good.
I love Krampus. I mean, spoiler if we ever do a discussion of Krampus, but yeah, no, I love it. Michael Dougherty, these are of the projects I was looking at what Michael Dougherty has done, and of of all the projects I've seen, the ones that I enjoy the most are his holiday
Yeah.
related or holiday themed movies. Krampus and Trick or Treat, those are my
Beyond
favorites.
writing, because he's written a lot, but I know he
Yes,
directed Trick or Treat, Krampus, and the newest Godzilla.
King of the Monsters, yeah. Which was fine.
It's better than the last one, I'll tell you that.
I liked the Godzilla parts of Godzilla, like, so that was fine. But King of the Monsters, again, I liked the monsters. I wish it could have just been monsters, but you know, but I mean, when you think about it, did you ever really? We're getting off track, but did you ever really care about the people in any Godzilla movie ever? Really?
The first
really?
one. Well, I mean, but the first one isn't about the first one is a tale of social issues and threat of nuclear war, and I mean, the characters mattered to that story in a way that it wasn't quite a monster movie yet. But
right.
a lot of the later movies, who gives a shit? Yeah,
no, it's just about I want to see Godzilla fight this guy, and it's like, so I just moved into that. But again, getting back on track, Michael Dougherty, like I would embrace a Trick or Treat too.
I would absolutely embrace it.
Yeah,
for sure.
I mean, doesn't mean I'd be like, I'm gonna love it no matter what. But I mean, also just I can't remember who it was in one of the special features because there's so much footage. But there was maybe one of the producers talking about how much he'd like to see the origin of Sam discovering his facial covering by taking it off the head of a scarecrow. They already established him in that flashback with the school bus sitting in that cornfield, like poking at, was it a bird?
Yeah, it's like a dead crow or like a dead raven.
Yeah, I think something like that, something autumnal.
Field,
but he's just poking at it with a stick, and he's already got the head. And in the distance, it looks like there's a pumpkin on top, I think. So maybe he just picked a pumpkin. I think it's just a pumpkin. So I think they already in their head told themselves, you know, like when you're designing, you tell yourself a story with a vista. And I think the idea was he was supposed to have taken that head off the scarecrow and just taken a pumpkin from the patch that he was in and just replaced it. And that, but somebody wants to see that scene. Who's a member of the creative team?
The storyboard artist,
maybe,
who had his own idea of like how he wanted to do something where you saw the pumpkin and then like the knife comes out and it's like Sam is born for the first time coming out of a pumpkin in a cornfield. Speaking of cornfield, there was a whole other storyline that was removed in the original script that was about like kids in a cornfield.
Oh, right, yeah.
Attacked by like a scarecrow. So I'm like, well, there's already one story for your sequel. And then first of all, if you ever do a sequel, I don't want anything to be a sequelized version of what happens in this. So I don't need to see Anna Paquin come back, you know?
No.
My only exception is I wouldn't mind if you told a story. I don't really know what the story is. Kids, there's a threat. There's like a malevolent adult, young adult who's after them, like a serial killer, whatever. The scarecrow, the mask comes off, whatever. Make it the scarecrow. But you find out that the person's chasing them, who looks like they're maybe 20, 21 years old, is a serial killer who he learned everything from his dad.
Billy. Yeah.
Yeah. And because just add however many years it's from 2007. But I'm like, don't make it necessarily about it, but that's a fun little connection thing. Like, I wouldn't mind seeing what happened to that. Like, that kid's going to have problems.
And he's the only one that's like kind of like a loose end. And at the end, he's just kind of sitting on a porch giving out candy, wearing his father's bloodied shirt, which could translate to him wearing his legacy and carrying
like
it on.
Costume.
But also like being inventive. Like, I mean, don't just do what your dad did. Do your thing. Like, let's see what you're twisted. Because
dress up like a scarecrow and murder some kids in a field.
Or something. I don't know. I don't know what it is. I feel like, I mean, I love both creep show features. So, and I love how different they are. So, I mean, Trick or Treat could go in a completely other direction as far as presentation, like even the structure. If it's not necessarily a sliding doors or not in the same vein, if it's not all happening in the same neighborhood. I mean, I don't know. I'm open. I don't have like kind of like a movie in my head that I'd like to see. I just know that, I agree with you. Billy Wilkins is probably the only character aside from Sam that I'd like to see again.
Yeah, I think it could work. And there's
Yeah, I think so too.
Halloween beats that they haven't, you could still exploit. I love the idea of the scarecrow in the cornfield. This movie had werewolves. You could very easily do something with vampires. You could very easily do something with ghosts, because we technically had werewolves and zombie children in this one. So why not go with even, I don't know, there's a lot to do. And if they don't ever do it, fine. This one is superb. Like I said, it is my warm blanket. It is my happy place. Sam is my happy place.
Yeah. With his little chin, his little, always reminds me of a gremlin. I don't know why. Just like kind of the angles in his chin and the fact that it's so sunk. Well, it's so thin. He's
cute with the mask on. And then also, strangely, he's cute with the mask off. I love his eyes and his little smile and the way his eyelids adjust when he, Oh, God. Yeah.
Yeah, I want to just hug him. Just be like, hi, Sam. Did you get enough candy? I'll get you candy. I'll get you all the candy in the world.
Well, yeah, at least you and I won't have to worry about being visited by anything like that, because we're the type of people that go, no, you don't smash those pumpkins.
Oh, no. I like that I know to keep the lights lit now, though, because I do. Ever since I saw that movie, it's like at least past midnight, because then it's morning. Maybe I'll blow them out then, but I don't do it before midnight.
If it's not before midnight, I don't ever blow. I'll let the candle die out, but I don't blow it out. I let it.
No, but I keep it lit though. No, I keep lighting. I do tea lights, and I keep just because usually the way it goes, one burns faster than the other two. I usually do like 2 or 3 because it makes it really bright inside. And I love Halloween. I love being home for it though. Like I just wish there were more trick-or-treaters. One thing, I'm not going to tell you where I live, but if you find me, I give out full-size bars. Like that's you're getting a reward. If you're going out trick-or-treating in this day and age, because you go to the Dollar Tree or go to the 99-cent store, you're going to find full-size bars for cheap. Sometimes it's even 2 for $1 or 3 for $1. I go for like the chocolate, but then I know there are some people who like have an intolerance or who even just don't like chocolate. So I'm like, okay, Sour Punch straws, Airheads, whatever, throw it all. And I just want it to be like a bouquet, my bowl to be a bouquet of candy. Just so like, cause I like seeing when no matter what age the kid is or the adult, when they see what I've got there. And it's sweet. It's one of the few
also in life.
One of the few interactions I get on Halloween with strangers that I'm actually really, really grateful for. So
I don't give out full candy bars, but what I do is I reach into the bowl real good and go like,
oh, that's sweet. Okay.
Especially now that I know on Halloween night, like not enough kids are going to come. Like I'm definitely going to go through the stock.
Well, I also let them pick their own. Funny tidbit. One night, maybe last year, not the year before, it doesn't matter. Anyway, one night, there was a little kid, he was a pirate, he was with his friends. They were like, wow! When I lowered the bowl, and I made the mistake. Instead of saying like, pick one, or take one, whatever you say. I'm like, help yourself. And this little pirate, he's appropriately dressed, appropriately attired because he's a pirate. Whoomp, 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 whoomp. I'm like, whoa, okay. I didn't want to take it back because that's a shitty thing to do. To be like, whoa, you took more, give me the candy back. I mean, good on him for catching me. It's my fault for telling him, help yourself. Mm-hmm. But I think he got 4 and he was going for a 5th and they had to block his hand with my hand. And finally he was just kind of like, I think he walked away. He was like doing that shuffling of his bag and he just said, I got 4. And I didn't restrict the other kids. I didn't tell them like only 1, but I think they saw me stop him and they didn't want to abuse. And it all happened so fast. I wasn't just kind of like, well, 4 for everybody. Cause then I'm like, well, 1, 2, 3. I mean, cause you never know. I always think like, this is going to be the year. This is the year that my house is going to be visited by like, kids in like the numbers of like the 50s or the 80s. And I better have something for them because I don't want to be giving out dental floss. I don't want to be writing checks.
I got rock.
And I don't want that, because what if somebody is attuned to the spirit of Halloween and knows about the trick part and, throws a flaming bag of poo on my porch? I probably shouldn't say that. Kids shouldn't know that was a thing for a while. You just you're only supposed to punish the people who don't give out candy or who give out shitty treats. Yeah. Like if they've given you dental floss, soap their windows. I didn't say that. Egg their car. These are the wholesome juvenile delinquent acts. To a
quarry and then take them down there and
yeah. Oh God. No, if you have a quarry and a story that goes with the quarry, a quarry story, go to the quarry, bring your jack-o'-lanterns, do not kick them into the lake.
No.
Leave them there as an offering, and who knows, maybe you'll get blessed, Can happen. At least you won't get hurt.
Yeah.
Come on.
Eaten by zombie children.
Don't be a garbage person.
One last thing, I think, before we go. The beginning of the movie, I think it's fun because even having seen it, you see the house and you see like someone in black walk by with a wagon. You're like, Rhonda, and then you see the car go, and you're like, that's the girls. Then later at the end of the movie, we come back to that moment, but we actually see Rhonda, we see the girls, we see the little boys. Mm-hmm. All four stories get to converge at the end. We go,
on one street, yeah,
one street, and that's when Tracy turned to me and she goes, police gonna have a lot to handle because like 3 people just died in these houses. Like that's 3 different murders. And I'm like, oh yeah, Brian Cox is next door to Dylan Baker's across the street. Fuck. That's a shitty Halloween for those officers. Oh my God.
Well, I mean, it's not gonna happen the same night, like
yeah.
Creed probably won't be found for a long time because he's a shut-in.
But still, that is a block of murder in one.
It is the murder block. They'll probably show up for Leslie Bibb first because her hubby found her,
right?
And then they're gonna find that kid.
Yeah,
but they're gonna find that kid. They're gonna find little Billy sitting across the street in a bloody shirt, handing out candy. They're gonna be like, "Where's your dad?" I don't know. Him yelling at the window. That's Daddy.
That and also like the dog is on the fence sniffing through, so you break a finger and throw it, and it's just like, here, have some evidence of the human I murdered. Also, I never really paid attention to it much, but when he's putting a little bad Santa kid down there, I don't know his name. He's just always going to be, Thurman Merman to me or whatever. There's like 2 other bodies down there. Like,
no, this is not his first time.
Yeah. Because if he's just burying bad Santa kid, Brian Cox wouldn't smell anything. But like, anyway, random thoughts. I'm done talking about trick or treat.
As am I. Me too. I love it forever.
It's great. So thanks for joining me, Eddie, and
thank you for asking me, John Carlos, and sorry, I'm stepping all over your
no, it's fine.
Your side.
It's just bullshit. Actually, I will say, our videos get random comments from people that are like, our videos are long.
Yeah,
they're not short. It's Joe Rogan sits around for 3 hours and he has a huge audience. We're fucking nobodies that sit around for like 2 hours talking about movies, and some people are watching them all and they actually mention that they like listening to us ramble for 2 hours. So to you out there who actually watch us and enjoy us, thank you for joining us.
Yes, thank you so much. Keep watching, please.
Okay, bye.
We appreciate you.